and the Committee on the Rights of the Child. A clear role that international NGOs can play is to supply information to committee members and to draw the committee's attention to particular issues. Through several reports that we have published over the years, we have suggested other ways, other avenues that the human rights expert and advocate might seek. These include providing sufficient evidence for the prosecution of members of the North Korean regime by the International Criminal Court, lobbying a UN member state to bring a resolution addressing North Korean human rights violations before the UN Security Council, continuing to press the Human Rights Council to address the human rights situation in North Korea, and identifying the requisite evidence, as well as a suitable plaintiff who could have standing to file a case under the U.S. Alien Tort Claim Act within the U.S. legal system. Now, naturally, we are also aware that none of these approaches are devoid of potential flaws. Reporting under treaty bodies relies on state reporting, which is a rather weak form of supervision. Referring North Korea to the ICC may be challenging if one or more permanent members of the Security Council oppose such course of action, and a UN Security Council resolution can easily be vetoed by a P5 member who is not necessarily sympathetic to addressing North Korean human rights issues. Moreover, membership in the UN Human Rights Council, determined by rotation and region, has often been controversial, and submissions to this body perceived as a less than effective approach. That being said, the UN General Assembly has adopted resolutions on North Korean human rights for 6 years in a row, citing systemic, widespread and grave violations of civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights. And also that the Human Rights Council has adopted several resolutions as recently as March of this year, resolutions dealing with North Korean human rights violations and condemning North Korea's failure to clarify whether it accepted any of the 167 recommendations received under the Universal Periodic Review process at the Human Rights Council. In addition to these remedies, other remedies could be focused on particular issue areas. One of the human rights violations that have received a lot of attention, also through a report published by our organization in the spring of the last year, is the issue of abductees, South Korean, Japanese nationals and nationals of other countries taken by North Korea, forced to train their intelligence operatives, teaching them foreign languages, cultures, and also helping them assume their identities. Basically, since June the 15th, 1950, the outbreak of the Korean War, in addition to South Koreans taken and never returned, in addition to South Korean POWs taken and never returned, there were citizens of 12 other countries and possibly 13 other countries: China, France, Guinea, Italy, Japan, Jordan, Lebanon, Malaysia, the Netherlands, Singapore, Thailand, and Romania. We have even looked into the disappearance of a young man from here, from the United States, 24-year-old U.S. citizen and BYU student David Snedden, who disappeared in 2004 in Western China. His disappearance was included in the Japanese language version of our report, not in the English language version. Some indications are there, and nevertheless we sense that we need more evidence regarding this case. So, the respective countries' personal jurisdiction over their own citizens abducted by North Korea provides a basis for legal standing in domestic courts. Also, these countries' territorial jurisdiction could apply because many times these plots to abduct foreign citizens were plotted or executed in other third countries. For example, Romanian artist Doina Bumba was residing in Italy when she was lured by North Korean agents into going to an art exhibition in the Far East before being abducted, and North Korean intelligence operatives in Copenhagen plotted to lure and abduct South Koreans studying in Europe. At the very least, submitting abductions to the jurisdiction of municipal courts in EU member states may ultimately result in preventing certain North Korean officials from traveling to Europe, an outcome which may enhance the leverage of human rights advocates and experts seeking to remedy the North Korean human rights situation. As we tackle these very serious issues, we have come to understand the importance of international coalition. We operate with very limited resources. Our organization has joined the International Coalition to Stop Crimes Against Humanity in North Korea. The overarching goal of this association of human rights organizations, including our own committee, including Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, Link on the West Coast, and others, a total of about 40 organizations. The overarching goal is a recommendation that we have made in a couple of our reports. The establishment of a UN Commission of Inquiry to look into possible crimes against humanity committed in North Korea. While everyone who is part of the coalition works towards this common goal, the coalition has also been active dealing with a particular case, a very rare case where we had the names of those being held by the North Koreans. You might be familiar with the case of the family of Dr. Oh Ki-lam, his wife and 2 daughters, South Korean nationals who are being held in North Korea. The coalition was very active dealing with that as well. I think that from our viewpoint as human rights organizations, definitely the best news is that, of course, North Korea continues to be a very reclusive regime and a closed country. It's very hard for information from the outside world to penetrate North Korea. Nevertheless, the situation is a little bit different now from what it was 10 years ago. And basically, based on studies done by the Broadcasting Board of Governors, interviews conducted with North Korean defectors, it appears that about 30% of them had listened to foreign broadcasting while in North Korea. It also appears that mobile storage devices, USBs, CD-ROMs, DVD-ROMs are available. About 3% of North Koreans have computers not connected to the internet, but nevertheless they can watch their South Korean drama and become familiarized with the Korean way of the Hallyu Yeolpung, or the Nampung as they call it, I understand, by watching video material on the storage devices. It is important that, I don't want to steal Roberta's thunder, but Roberta, she will not mention this, but in the 1970s, I think, Roberta was on the phone with Andrei Sakharov and other Soviet dissidents, reading to them passages from the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, because these materials were not available in Russian language in the Soviet Union. We need the equivalent of that now. Of course, it's not going to be us talking to North Koreans on a cell phone. Of course, the Orascom Telecom Koreolink system is a domestic system. Yes, they have 1 million subscribers, but a UNDP official cannot call his North Korean driver on his cell phone because foreigners and North Koreans use different systems. Of course, there are those Chinese mobile phones in the border areas. They can be used. Some press outfits, NK Daily, RFA, do have North Korean stringers making very brief phone calls. We need to find the equivalent of what Dr. Cohen was doing in the 1970s. We need to find ways to get information on the rights extended to North Korean citizens, in particular under those human rights bodies that the government has ratified. And most likely, the increased inflow of information into North Korea via radio waves, via USB, CD-ROMs, or going along these informal supply chains that have been established as a coping mechanism in the aftermath of the Great Famine of the 1990s, this might be the very key to solving the human rights situation in North Korea. Based on what we have seen, not much has changed since Kim Jong-un assumed leadership of North Korea. We've had some signs that the situation might actually have gotten worse, but Dr. Cohen will be addressing a set of very interesting issues pertaining to what we have seen and what we might see in the future and what might help us better gauge the human rights situation in North Korea. I look forward to talking to you in the Q&A. Thank you very much.
I want to thank Think for organizing this event. I think it's wonderful that you're all here. I must say that I've been often disappointed at the lack of interest or the indifference of some of the Korean American community in this country to events in North Korea, particularly human rights developments. And so I really just love seeing everybody here and feeling that you care about this issue. What I'm going to address, as Greg said, are signs to look for, engaging whether North Korea's new leaders are ready to head in new directions when it comes to human rights. I agree with Greg that Kim Jong-Un and his advisors right now are showing no evidence of change in policy or approach, but there are those who predict that independent markets, information technology, the need for international aid, will at some point encourage change in North Korea, that the country will become more open, which can pave the way to greater economic freedom and ultimately political reforms. I have no predictions on that.